Cade rubbed his tired eyes and looked at the disassembled drone parts scattered across his workbench. Another day, another string of mechanical failures to fix. The air in the maintenance bay felt stale despite the ventilation system humming overhead. The harsh fluorescent lights cast everything in an unflattering bluish tint, making the metallic surfaces look cold and clinical. Exactly how he felt about this military base after 3 years of service. Automated diagnostic complete. Conveyor drone M42 requires replacement of central processing unit and gyroscopic stabilizer, announced the computerized voice from his workstation. Tell me something I don't know, Cade muttered, tossing a burnout circuit board into the recycling bin. He diagnosed the problem an hour ago, but protocol required the system to verify everything. Rules, procedures, paperwork, the lifeblood of military bureaucracy that was slowly draining his enthusiasm for engineering. The base clock showed 23:40. Most personnel had retired to their quarters, leaving the corridors eerily quiet. Cade packed his tools methodically, his movements mechanical from years of routine. Outside, through the reinforced glass windows, he could see the hostile landscape of planet Taraxis. Red rocky terrain under a perpetually stormy sky, with occasional flashes of electrical storms illuminating the horizon. Not exactly paradise, but strategic enough for the Alliance to establish this joint human-beast folk outpost despite the inhospitable conditions. The beast folk quarters were on the eastern wing, separated from the human sector by the central command hub. Cade rarely interacted with them beyond professional necessity, not out of prejudice, but because the unspoken segregation made casual mingling uncommon. The Alliance might publicly champion interspecies cooperation, but old habits died hard, even 5 decades after first contact. With a resigned sigh, Cade swiped his access card and headed toward his quarters in the residential block. The corridors were dimly lit for the night cycle, conserving energy for more critical systems. His footsteps echoed against the metal flooring as he rounded the corner toward his unit, number 3 to 47. Upon reaching his door, Cade pressed his thumb against the fingerprint scanner. The panel blinked red twice before reluctantly changing to green with a strained beep. Maintenance needed here too, he grumbled. The hydraulic door slid open halfway before jamming with a metallic groan. Perfect. Just perfect. Cade pushed against the door, applying more pressure when it refused to budge. Something was obstructing it from the other side. Squinting through the gap, he spotted what appeared to be a dark, furry object wedged between the door and the frame. Curious, he reached through the gap and touched it. The texture was unmistakably fur, soft and dense. He gave it a gentle tug. Yoch! A sharp, feminine yelp came from inside his quarters. Don't pull too hard, or I'll make sounds. Cade jumped back, startled. What the who's there? His heart hammered in his chest as he tried to process the situation. Someone was in his room, and judging from the fur, not human. Your stupid door trapped my tail, hissed the voice. Can you open it wider instead of yanking on parts of my body? Cade tried pushing the door again, but remained stubbornly jammed. I can't. The mechanism is stuck. And more importantly, who are you and what are you doing in my quarters? A frustrated growl came from inside. I'm trying to retrieve something. If you help me get my tail free, I'll explain. But if you alert security, we're both going to have problems. Cade hesitated. Protocol demanded he report intruders immediately. But curiosity and the bizarre nature of the situation made him pause. How did you even get in? The door requires my biometrics. I have my ways, came the curt reply. Look, are you going to help? Or keep interrogating me while my tail gets crushed? With a resigned sigh, Cade examined the door mechanism. The hydraulic pressure is unstable. If I reset the system, it might give us a few seconds of movement. He reached for the manual override panel beside the door. When I count to 3, push from your side. 1, 2, 3. He pressed the reset button and shoved against the door simultaneously. There was movement from inside, and the door slid open another 15 centimeters before freezing again. A slender figure slipped through the gap, moving with remarkable agility despite the confined space. As she emerged into the corridor light, Cade found himself face to face with a female beast folk, sleek black fur covering her body, pointed ears alert atop her head, and striking yellow eyes that seemed to glow in the dim lighting. Her tail, the source of their predicament, was still partially caught, its tip pinched in the door's seam. "Don't just stand there," she snapped, wincing. "Help me." Cade knelt down and carefully guided her tail through the opening while she pulled. With a final tug, the tail came free, and she immediately cradled it, rubbing the pinched section. "You should be more careful where you leave that thing," Cade said, trying to sound stern despite the absurdity of the situation. "And you should maintain your doors better," she retorted, her ears flattening slightly in irritation. She glanced nervously down the corridor. "We need to get out of sight. Your patrollers make rounds every 20 minutes. As if on cue, the distant sound of boots on metal flooring echoed from around the corner. The Beastwoman's eyes widened with alarm. Cade made a split-second decision that he suspected he'd regret. "Inside. Now." He motioned toward his still partially open quarters. She didn't need to be told twice, slipping back through the gap with feline grace. Cade followed, squeezing through awkwardly just as the patrollers' voices became audible around the bend. Once inside, Cade took a proper look at the intruder in his room. She stood about a head shorter than him, with a lithe, athletic build beneath what appeared to be a modified stealth suit, dark material that minimized noise and blended seamlessly with her black fur. A utility belt hugged her waist, carrying various tools and what looked suspiciously like lock-picking equipment. Her tail, now safely behind her, twitched nervously. "Start talking," Cade demanded, keeping his voice low. "Who are you, and what are you doing breaking into personnel quarters?" She studied him for a moment, ears swiveling to track the patrollers passing outside. Only when their footsteps faded did she speak. "My name is Rhea. I'm here to recover something that doesn't belong to your people, something your commander stole from us." Cade crossed his arms. "Breaking and entering is still a crime, even if you think you're on some righteous mission." "I had no choice," Rhea hissed, her tail swishing with agitation. Going through official channels would have given them time to destroy the evidence. Evidence of what, exactly? Rhea's yellow eyes narrowed, calculating how much to reveal. Finally, she sighed. "How much do you know about Commander Roswell?" Cade shrugged. "Base commander for 3 years. Former tactical officer from the Perseus campaign. Strict but fair from what I've seen." A bitter laugh escaped Rhea. "Fair? Is that what you humans call it?" She stepped closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Your Commander Roswell has been embezzling Alliance resources for months, selling diplomatic data to hostile factions, and running a black market tech smuggling operation right under everyone's noses." Cade blinked in disbelief. That's a serious accusation. Where's your proof?" "That's what I came for," Rhea replied. "A data shard containing transaction records, communication logs, and footage of illegal meetings. It's a crystalline storage device about this big." She indicated a size roughly that of a credit chip. "Roswell stole it from our intelligence officer 2 weeks ago during what was supposed to be a routine inspection." "And why were you looking in my quarters?" "I wasn't. I was checking all quarters in this section. Intelligence suggested the shard would be hidden somewhere accessible but secure." She glanced around his modest living space. "Your room seemed promising since you're a maintenance engineer with security clearance, but I found nothing before your unexpected return." Cade ran a hand through his short brown hair, processing this information. "Let's say I believe you, which I don't necessarily. Why should I help instead of reporting you?" Rhea's expression darkened. "Because innocent people are suffering. 3 beast folk who discovered parts of this operation have had accidents in the past month. My cousin was one of them. Critical life support failure during a routine maintenance check of the Eastern Atmospheric processors. No investigation, no questions." Her voice cracked slightly. Roswell made sure of that. Something in her tone made Cade pause. He'd heard rumors about the accidents, but they'd been dismissed as equipment malfunctions or user error. Standard explanations in a high-risk environment. "I can't prove it yet," Rhea continued. "But if we recover the shard, we can expose everything. The question is, Will you stand by while crimes continue under your nose? Or will you help me bring justice? Cade hesitated. Getting involved meant risking his career at minimum, potentially facing charges of treason if things went sideways. But turning away meant potentially enabling corruption and violence. I'm not asking you to decide right now, Rhea said, sensing his internal conflict. But know that I'll continue with or without you. Alone, my chances aren't good, but I have to try. Before Cade could respond, a sharp knock echoed through the room. Both of them froze. Security check, Engineer Thompson, called a gruff voice. Your door appears to be malfunctioning. Do you require assistance? Cade motioned for Rhea to hide in the bathroom alcove. Just a moment, he called out, heart pounding as he watched her slip silently into the shadows. Opening the door wider manually, he faced a patrol officer, Sergeant Miller, recognizable by the scar across his left eyebrow. Evening, Sergeant, Cade said casually. Yeah, the door's been acting up. I was about to file a maintenance request. Miller peered over Cade's shoulder into the room. Everything all right in there? Thought I heard voices. Just me cursing at the door, Cade lied smoothly, and catching up with family messages. He gestured toward his communication terminal, which thankfully displayed an unread message notification. Miller nodded, seemingly satisfied. Get that door fixed, Thompson. Security hazard. He tapped something on his wrist device. I've logged it in the system for you. Appreciate it, Cade responded, fighting to keep his voice steady. As Miller turned to leave, he paused. One more thing. We've got orders to report any unusual activity, especially near the Beastfolk sectors. Seen anything out of the ordinary? Cade's mouth went dry. Nothing notable. Pretty quiet night. Keep it that way, Miller said with a nod before continuing his patrol. Cade closed the door and leaned against it, exhaling slowly. Rhea emerged from her hiding spot, visibly tense. That was close, she whispered. Too close, Cade agreed. His mind raced as he weighed his options. The patrol's specific mention of reporting unusual activity near Beastfolk quarters indicated heightened security, possibly related to Rhea's mission. If her allegations were true, Roswell was likely aware of potential threats to his operation. A realization dawned on him. Regardless of his choice, he was already implicated. By hiding Rhea from security, he'd chosen a side, however unwittingly. If this goes badly, we both get burned, Cade said finally. I need to know exactly what we're dealing with and what your plan is. Relief flashed across Rhea's features. Then you'll help. I'll listen first, Cade corrected, then decide. But we can't stay here. The room's probably compromised now that security has taken notice. Rhea nodded. We need to move quickly anyway. The shard is likely in Storage Repository B, Roswell's unofficial off-the-books collection. I know it, Cade confirmed. Restricted access, multiple security layers, supposedly holds obsolete equipment too valuable to discard. The perfect hiding place for illicit goods, Rhea added. My access can get us to the outer corridor, but for the inner chambers, you'd need engineering clearance, Cade finished, understanding dawning. That's why you need me. Rhea's eyes held his, a mixture of determination and something like hope. Yes, my people are counting on this. Cade checked his watch, 0:05. Night shift would be minimal, but security would be vigilant. If they were going to do this, now was the time, before he could think too deeply about the consequences. I must be insane, he muttered, grabbing his multi-tool and access card. But if what you're saying is true, I couldn't live with myself just looking the other way. He stuffed a few more useful items into his pockets. We go, we look, we get out. If we find nothing, this ends, agreed? Agreed, Rhea said with a firm nod. Cade cracked open the door, checking the corridor. Clear. Follow me and act like you belong here if we encounter anyone. Together, they slipped out into the dimly lit hallway, the door closing behind them with a soft hiss. As they moved silently through the corridors, Cade couldn't shake the feeling that he had just crossed a line from which there was no return. The journey to Storage Repository B required navigating through 3 sectors of the base. Cade led them through service corridors and maintenance tunnels where possible, avoiding the main thoroughfares patrolled by security. Rhea moved with impressive stealth, her padded feet making virtually no sound against the metal flooring. How did you learn the base layout so thoroughly? Cade whispered as they paused at a junction, waiting for a patrol to pass. I've been planning this for weeks, Rhea replied quietly. Memorized duty rosters, patrol patterns, ventilation shafts, anything that might help. The determination in her voice impressed him, though he still harbored doubts about her claims. Yet something about Roswell had always seemed off to Cade. The commander's occasional unexplained absences, the selective enforcement of regulations, the way certain inventory discrepancies were quickly dismissed. They approached a security checkpoint that separated the general facilities from the restricted storage areas. A scanner required biometric confirmation for passage. This is where I need your clearance, Rhea whispered, pressing herself against the wall to avoid the camera's field of view. Cade nodded, approaching the scanner casually as if conducting routine maintenance. He placed his palm on the reader, keeping his expression neutral for the facial recognition camera. Engineer Thompson, Cade. Clearance Level 3, the automated system announced. Purpose of access? Emergency diagnostics on environmental control units. Cade responded, using the standard override for after-hours access. Authorization code Theta-96. The system processed his request, seconds stretching painfully. Finally, the barrier slid open with a pneumatic hiss. Access granted. Limited duration approval, 45 minutes. Once through, Cade motioned for Rhea to follow quickly before the barrier closed. She slipped through with seconds to spare, her tail barely clearing before the door sealed behind them. 45 minutes, Cade whispered. That's our window. The restricted sector had minimal lighting, red emergency strips along the floor creating an eerie atmosphere. Storage Repository B was at the end of a long corridor lined with smaller secure rooms. Cameras? Rhea asked, scanning the ceiling. 2, Cade confirmed. But they operate on a rotation pattern to conserve power. We have about 20 seconds between sweeps. They moved in synchronized bursts, pausing in blind spots as the cameras pivoted. As they neared the repository entrance, a low mechanical hum indicated an approaching maintenance drone. Hi, Cade hissed, pulling Rhea into a recessed doorway. They pressed together in the narrow space, Rhea's body warm against his as the spherical drone floated past, its scanning beam sweeping methodically across the corridor. Cade held his breath until it disappeared around the corner. That wasn't on the patrol schedule, Rhea whispered, her ears twitching with tension. Security must be tightened, Cade replied. We need to hurry. The repository door featured multiple security measures, keycard reader, biometric scanner, and a manual keypad for the redundancy code. Cade worked efficiently, swiping his card and positioning his eye for the retinal scan while entering his access code. Warning: access outside standard operations requires secondary authorization, the system announced. Cade tensed. They've added another layer since my last maintenance check. Rhea's yellow eyes narrowed. Can you bypass it? Not without triggering alerts. Cade examined the panel thoughtfully. But I can trick it into thinking we're conducting emergency maintenance. He pulled out his multi-tool, carefully removing the access panel cover to expose the circuitry beneath. With practiced precision, he bridged 2 connections while simultaneously entering a maintenance override sequence. The panel flickered, then displayed. Emergency maintenance protocol activated. Limited system functionality. Security alerts temporarily suspended. You're good, Rhea admitted as the massive door began to slide open. Just doing my job, Cade replied, though he couldn't suppress a small smile of satisfaction. The repository beyond was cavernous, rows upon rows of shelving units filled with equipment, containers, and various technological components. The space was climate-controlled and dimly lit to preserve sensitive materials. Where would he hide it? Cade whispered, overwhelmed by the sheer volume of potential hiding places. Rhea's nose twitched, her heightened senses scanning the room. Somewhere secure but accessible. Something he can check regularly. They moved deeper into the repository, checking labeled containers and secure cabinets. Minutes ticked by as they searched methodically, aware of their limited window. "Here," Rhea called softly after 15 tense minutes. "This section has Roswell's personal security code." She pointed to a reinforced cabinet with a distinct locking mechanism, more sophisticated than the surrounding storage units. A private safe within the repository itself. Kate examined the lock. Triple encrypted with biometric authentication. "This won't be easy. Can you crack it?" Rhea pressed, her tail swishing anxiously. "Not conventionally," Kate admitted. "But every system has a backdoor for maintenance emergencies." He connected his engineering terminal to the lock's diagnostic port. "Give me a few minutes." Cade worked in concentrated silence, fingers flying across the interface as he exploited a maintenance protocol vulnerability. Rhea kept watch, her sensitive ears angled toward the entrance. "Almost there," Cade murmured. "The system thinks I'm running a full diagnostic, which requires access to all components, including the locking mechanism." After several tense minutes, the cabinet emitted a soft click. "Got it," Cade whispered triumphantly. Together, they eased the cabinet open. Inside were various containers, each sealed and labeled with cryptic designations. Rhea's eyes scanned them quickly before stopping on a small black box marked X, T47. "This is it," she said with certainty, carefully lifting the container. Inside, nestled in protective foam, lay a crystalline object about the size of a playing card, transparent with a slight bluish glow emanating from within. Intricate patterns were visible in its depths, shifting subtly as they observed it. The data shard. Rhea breathed, reverently lifting it. "Everything we need is stored inside." Cade stared at the delicate crystal. "That's Alliance Beast Folk hybrid technology. Highly classified. And stolen from us," Rhea confirmed. "These shards are living technology. They respond only to authorized users and store data within a crystal lattice that's nearly impossible to..." She was interrupted by a blaring alarm that suddenly erupted throughout the repository. Red warning lights began flashing as an automated voice announced, "Security breach detected. Emergency lockdown initiated. All personnel remain in place for verification." "What happened?" Rhea shouted over the noise, clutching the shard tightly. Cade checked his terminal. "Secondary security system." The cabinet must have been connected to a separate alarm network. The repository's main door began to close automatically. Without hesitation, they sprinted toward the exit, dodging between shelving units as the massive door slowly descended. "We're not going to make it," Cade yelled, seeing the narrowing gap. "Yes, we are." Rhea grabbed his hand and pulled him forward with surprising strength. They slid beneath the door with inches to spare, Rhea's tail once again nearly caught in the closing mechanism. The corridor beyond was bathed in red emergency lighting. The alarm had triggered a base-wide alert. They had minutes at most before security converged on them. This way, Cade pulled Rhea toward a maintenance shaft. "It leads to the environmental control section. We can exit through the external vents." They climbed into the narrow shaft, crawling quickly through the dusty passage as security personnel's voices echoed behind them. The shaft branched multiple times, and Cade navigated by memory, leading them through the labyrinthine system. "How much further?" Rhea asked, her breathing becoming labored in the confined space. "Almost there," Cade assured her, though his own arms were beginning to ache from the awkward crawling position. Finally, they reached a vertical section with a ladder leading down to an access door. Cade descended first, helping Rhea down before securing the door behind them. They emerged into the environmental processing plant, a massive room filled with air filtration equipment and atmospheric regulators. "The external access is through there." Cade pointed to a heavy-duty airlock designed for maintenance of the external sensor array. "It leads to the perimeter." As they moved toward it, the comm system crackled to life throughout the base. "Attention, all personnel. This is Commander Roswell. We have unauthorized access to restricted areas and theft of classified materials. All security teams deploy immediately. The base is under lockdown. Repeat, full lockdown protocols are now in effect." Cade and Rhea exchanged alarmed glances. The situation had escalated beyond a simple security alert. They were now fugitives. He knows, Rhea said grimly, clutching the shard tighter. We need to get out of the base entirely. They reached the airlock, and Cade quickly initiated the cycling sequence. As the inner door opened, they stepped inside the small chamber. Once we're outside, we'll need to reach the old communication relay station, Rhea explained hurriedly as the airlock cycled. It's our only chance to broadcast the shard's data to the Alliance Central Command. The outer door opened with a hiss, revealing the harsh Terrasian landscape. Rocky terrain bathed in the eerie glow of the planet's permanent electrical storms. Wind howled as they stepped outside, the airlock sealing behind them. Stay low, Cade advised, leading the way along the base's perimeter. External sensors will pick us up if we move too far from the structure. They hugged the wall, using the base itself as cover from both the elements and detection systems. In the distance, they could see security personnel deploying from various exits, searchlights sweeping across the terrain. We need to reach the eastern ridge, Rhea shouted over the wind. There's a network of lava tubes that will hide us from thermal scans. They made it to the edge of the base's perimeter fence before spotting a patrol heading their way. Ducking behind a cluster of equipment, they watched as 4 armed guards moved methodically across the rocky ground, scanning for signs of the intruders. They're between us and the ridge, Cade whispered. We'll have to circle around. Just as they prepared to move, the distinctive whine of a hover drone approached from above. The small device dropped rapidly, its scanning beam sweeping toward their position. Run, Cade yelled, abandoning stealth for speed. They sprinted across the open ground as the drone's alarm activated. Behind them, shouts indicated the patrol had spotted them. Weapon fire cracked through the air, energy bolts impacting the rocks around them. Rhea was faster, her beast folk physiology giving her superior speed and agility over the rough terrain. She leapt gracefully between boulders while Cade struggled to keep pace. A stray energy bolt struck near his foot, sending him stumbling. Cade! Rhea turned back, seeing him fall. Keep going, he shouted, scrambling to his feet. I'm right behind you. They reached the base of the ridge and began climbing, loose rocks cascading beneath their feet. The pursuing guards were falling behind, hampered by their heavier equipment. The ridge itself provided some cover from their weapons' fire. At the top, a dark opening gaped in the rock face, the entrance to one of the lava tubes Rhea had mentioned. They ducked inside just as a spotlight swept across the ridge. The tunnel beyond was dark and warm, residual heat from the planet's geological activity creating a sharp contrast with the cold exterior. As they moved deeper inside, the sounds of pursuit gradually faded. We should be safe for now, Rhea said, her yellow eyes adjusting more quickly to the darkness than Cade's human vision. They won't follow us in here without proper equipment. These tunnels are unstable. As if to emphasize her point, a small tremor shook loose some dust from the ceiling. The planet's constant tectonic activity made the lava tube network both a refuge and a danger. So we hide here until things cool down? Cade asked, catching his breath. Rhea shook her head. We can't wait. Roswell will lock down the communication relay station the moment he realizes that's our likely destination. We need to keep moving through the tubes. They extend for kilometers and emerge near the abandoned outpost where the relay is located. She pulled out a small device that projected a holographic map of the tunnel system. I studied these formations before the mission. If we follow this path, we should reach the exit closest to the relay within a few hours. Cade examined the complex network of tunnels. You really did plan thoroughly. I had to, Rhea said softly. Too much depends on this. As his eyes adjusted to the dim light, Cade noticed a sincerity in her expression that reinforced his decision to help. Whether all her claims were true remained to be seen, but her conviction was undeniable. They began moving through the tunnels, guided by Rhea's map and her superior night vision. The path twisted and descended, occasionally branching into multiple passages. The heat intensified as they ventured deeper, forcing them to remove their outer layers. So, Cade began after they had been walking for some time. You never told me exactly how you got involved in all this. Rio was silent for several steps before responding. My family has served in the Alliance Diplomatic Corps for generations. My father was the first beast folk to achieve ambassador status to the Human Coalition. Impressive, Cade noted. He was, she agreed, a note of sadness in her voice. He believed deeply in cooperation between our species. When rumors of corruption within the Alliance military command reached him, he began a quiet investigation. She paused at a junction, consulting her map before selecting the right-hand passage. 3 months ago, he was killed in what was reported as a shuttle accident. Too convenient, too clean. My cousin, the one I mentioned earlier, had been helping him. After his death, she continued gathering information until her accident in the atmosphere processor. And you picked up where they left off, Cade finished, understanding dawning. Ria nodded. I joined the base staff as a communications specialist, using my family connections to get the posting. I've been searching for concrete evidence ever since. I'm sorry about your family, Cade said quietly. Thank you, she replied. What about you? How does an obviously talented engineer end up stuck in maintenance at a remote outpost? Cade laughed humorlessly. Would you believe I requested the assignment? Ria's ears perked up with interest. Voluntarily exiling yourself to this wasteland? Why? Needed space to think, he admitted. I was on the fast track at Alliance R&D, developing next-gen propulsion systems. Good career, prestigious position. Sounds ideal, realmente. It was, Cade agreed, until I realized some of my designs were being repurposed for weapons applications without my knowledge or consent. When I raised concerns, I was quietly sidelined. Given the choice between resignation or reassignment, I chose the latter. So you understand corruption firsthand, Ria said softly. On a smaller scale, maybe, Cade acknowledged. Nothing compared to what Roswell's allegedly done. They continued through the tunnels, sharing more details about their lives and experiences. Despite their different backgrounds, Cade found they shared similar values and frustrations with Alliance bureaucracy and politics. The conversation made the journey pass more quickly, and he found himself increasingly comfortable in Ria's presence. Several hours into their trek, they paused in a larger cavern to rest. Glowing fungi on the walls provided natural illumination, casting everything in a soft blue light. A small underground spring provided fresh water, and they gratefully replenished their strength. As Cade sat on a rock formation, he noticed Ria wincing slightly as she stretched. You're injured, he observed. It's nothing, she dismissed. Just scrape my leg on the climb. Let me see, Cade insisted, moving closer. A long gash ran down her calf, the dark fur around it matted with dried blood. Without waiting for permission, he pulled a compact medical kit from his utility belt, standard equipment for engineers working in potentially hazardous environments. This might sting, he warned, applying an antiseptic solution. Ria inhaled sharply, but remained still as he cleaned and dressed the wound. Her eyes watched him curiously. You're surprisingly gentle for a human, she remarked. And you're surprisingly trusting for someone who's been through what you have, Cade countered, securing the bandage. A small smile tugged at her lips. Perhaps I'm a good judge of character. Or desperate, Cade suggested, though he returned her smile. Maybe both, she admitted. After a pause, she added, thank you. Not just for this, she gestured to the bandage, but for helping at all. You didn't have to risk everything on my word. Cade shrugged. Something about a mysterious beast woman with her tail stuck in my door seemed trustworthy. Ria laughed, a warm, genuine sound that echoed pleasantly through the cavern. When you put it that way, I'm surprised you didn't call security immediately. Well, you did say don't pull too hard or I'll make sounds. How could I resist finding out what that meant? Cade teased. To his surprise, Ria's fur seemed to bristle slightly along her neck, the beast folk equivalent of a blush. That came out wrong, she muttered, her tail swishing with embarrassment. I won't hold it against you, Cade assured her, enjoying her discomfort perhaps a bit too much. After resting, they continued their journey, the tunnels gradually ascending as they approached the eastern exit. The ambient temperature dropped, indicating they were nearing the surface. "We're close," Rhea confirmed, checking her map. "The exit should be just ahead." As they rounded a bend in the tunnel, a faint light indicated the opening to the outside world. They approached cautiously, Rhea taking point with her superior senses. "Clear," she whispered after scanning the area. No signs of patrols. They emerged onto a rocky shelf overlooking a vast plain. In the distance, they could see the silhouette of the communication relay station, a tall structure with a massive dish antenna, parts of it damaged from years of exposure to the planet's harsh conditions. "It's more run down than I expected," Kate observed. "Will it even work?" "The core systems should still be operational," Rhea replied. "These old relay stations were built to last. The Alliance abandoned it when they upgraded to the quantum network, but the basic transmission capabilities should remain intact. The journey across the plain would be dangerous. Open terrain with little cover under the perpetually stormy sky. Flashes of lightning periodically illuminated the landscape, making stealth difficult. "We'll need to move quickly," Rhea said, studying the terrain. "Use the rock formations for cover when possible, but don't linger. Roswell will have deployed search parties by now." They descended from the shelf, keeping low as they began crossing the exposed ground. The wind had intensified, carrying dust and small debris that stung their exposed skin. They moved in short bursts, dashing between sheltering rocks while watching for signs of pursuit. They were halfway across when Rhea suddenly froze, her ears swiveling forward. "Something's coming," she warned, pulling Cade down behind a boulder. Seconds later, a scout vehicle crested a nearby rise, a lightweight hover transport carrying 4 armed security personnel. Its searchlight swept methodically across the plain. "They're between us and the relay," Cade whispered. "We'll have to circle around." "No time," Rhea countered. "Look!" In the distance, more lights indicated additional search parties approaching from multiple directions. Their window of opportunity was rapidly closing. "We need a distraction," Cade whispered, scanning their surroundings. His eyes fell on a cluster of equipment near the scout vehicle. Environmental sensors placed to monitor the planet's volatile conditions. "Those sensor arrays are powered by standard-issue energy cells," he explained quickly. "If we can overload one, it would create enough of a disturbance to draw their attention." Rhea nodded. "Can you do it from here?" Cade pulled out his engineering terminal. "The sensors are on the base network. If I can access their maintenance protocol..." His fingers flew across the interface. "Got it. I'm increasing power to the thermal regulators while disabling the safety protocols." The security team was moving methodically closer to their position when suddenly, one of the sensor arrays erupted in a shower of sparks and smoke. The guards immediately turned their attention to the apparent malfunction, the hover transport veering toward the disturbance. "Now!" Rhea urged, and they sprinted toward the relay station, using the diversion to cross the remaining distance. The ancient structure loomed above them as they reached its base, a testament to earlier colonial efforts. The main entrance was partially collapsed, forcing them to squeeze through a narrow opening. Inside, dust-covered equipment and abandoned workstations created an eerie atmosphere. "The transmission array should be on the upper level," Rhea said, leading the way up a metal staircase that groaned under their weight. The control room was in better condition than the exterior suggested. The Alliance had built these structures to withstand the planet's harsh environment. Cade moved to the main console, brushing away years of accumulated dust. "Backup power cells should still have some charge," he muttered, locating the system's activation sequence. "Let's see if this old girl still has some life in her." He initiated the startup protocol, and to their relief, lights flickered across the console as ancient systems reluctantly awakened. Diagnostic screens illuminated, displaying the station's status. "Primary systems operational at 42% capacity," Cade read. "Transmission capabilities limited but functional. It's enough to send a targeted burst to the Alliance headquarters." Rhea carefully removed the data shard from its protective case. "We need to connect this to the main input array," she explained. "The shard will automatically format the data for transmission once it detects a compatible system." Cade located the appropriate port and Rhea gently inserted the crystalline device. The shard glowed more intensely, pulsing with internal light as it interfaced with the station systems. "It's working," she breathed. "The data is being prepared for transmission." A progress indicator appeared on the main screen. 12%. 23%. The ancient system processed the sophisticated data at an agonizingly slow pace. "How long?" Cade asked, eyeing the entrance nervously. "Minutes, maybe," Rhea replied. "Depends on how well the shard integrates with this outdated technology." They didn't have minutes. The distinctive sound of hover engines approached the station, and floodlights swept across the exterior. "They found us," Cade said grimly. "We need to buy time for the transmission to complete." Rhea nodded, her expression hardening. "I'll secure the entrance. You stay with the shard. Make sure that transmission goes through." Before he could protest, she was moving quickly down the stairs, her lithe form disappearing into the shadows of the lower level. Cade turned back to the console, searching for ways to accelerate the process. The progress had reached 41%, but the system was already showing signs of strain, warnings flashing across auxiliary screens. Below, he heard the crash of the security team breaching the entrance, followed by shouted commands. A series of energy blasts echoed through the station, accompanied by the sounds of combat. Rhea was engaging the intruders, keeping them from reaching the control room. Cade worked frantically, rerouting power from non-essential systems to boost the transmission capabilities. The ancient hardware protested, temperature gauges rising dangerously, but the progress increased slightly. 58%. 67%. The sounds of fighting grew closer. Cade grabbed a heavy tool from a nearby workstation, preparing to defend the console if necessary. The transmission had to complete. Everything depended on it. A tremendous crash from the stairwell announced that the battle had reached the upper level. Rhea backed into the control room, fur bristling and eyes narrowed as she fended off two security officers. She moved with incredible speed and precision, her natural agility giving her an edge in the close-quarter combat. "How much longer?" she called over her shoulder, dodging an energy blast that scorched the wall behind her. "Almost there," Cade replied, his attention divided between the console and the battle. 83%. 89%. More security personnel pushed into the room, their weapons trained on Rhea. She was outnumbered and running out of room to maneuver. One blast caught her arm, causing her to stumble with a pained cry. "Rhea," Cade shouted, moving to help her. "Stay with the console," she ordered, regaining her footing, and continuing to fight despite the injury. The transmission reached 95% when a commanding voice cut through the chaos. "Enough." The security team parted as Commander Roswell himself entered the control room, his uniform immaculate despite the emergency, his cold gray eyes surveying the scene with calculated displeasure. "Engineer Thompson," he said, his voice deceptively calm. "I'm disappointed to find one of our own involved in this. Insurgency." "It's not insurgency to expose corruption," Cade replied, positioning himself between Roswell and the console. Roswell smiled thinly. "Such dramatic accusations. And based on what?" "The word of a beast folk spy." He gestured dismissively toward Rhea, who was now restrained by two guards, blood matting the fur on her injured arm. "The word of evidence," Cade countered. "Data that will speak for itself." "Ah yes, the alleged evidence," Roswell mocked. "Stolen property that, if it existed, would be classified Alliance intelligence, placing you both in violation of multiple security protocols." He took a step closer, his voice hardening. "Step away from the console, Thompson. This misguided adventure ends now." "I don't think so," Cade replied, checking the progress indicator from the corner of his eye. 98%. 99%. Roswell noticed his glance, and realization dawned on his face. "Stop the transmission," he barked at his security team. "Shut it down immediately." Two officers rushed forward, but it was too late. The console chimed softly as the progress bar reached 100%. "Transmission complete," the system announced. "Data package delivered to Alliance Central Command." The blood drained from Roswell's face. For a moment, his carefully maintained composure cracked, revealing the panic beneath. He regained control quickly, but Kate had seen enough to confirm Ria's accusations. "You've made a grave miscalculation," Roswell said coldly. "Regardless of what you think that data contains, all you've accomplished is marking yourselves as traitors." He drew his sidearm, aiming it at Cade. Unfortunately, traitors attempting to flee often meet with accidents in Taraxis's dangerous environment. "I wouldn't do that if I were you, Commander." The new voice came from the stairwell, where a squad of Alliance Marines in full tactical gear had appeared, their weapons trained on Roswell and his security team. Lieutenant Commander Vega, Alliance Intelligence, announced their leader, a stern-faced woman with captain's insignia. "Commander Roswell, you are relieved of duty pending investigation into charges of corruption, embezzlement, and conspiracy against Alliance interests." Roswell's face contorted with rage. "This is absurd. On whose authority?" "Direct orders from Alliance Central Command," Vega interrupted. "They've been reviewing the transmission data for the past 10 minutes. Initial analysis confirms its authenticity." Kate blinked in surprise. 10 minutes? But we just sent it." The lieutenant commander allowed herself a small smile. "Quantum Relay Network, Engineer Thompson. The old transmission station connected to our modern network. Once your signal hit a quantum node, the data was instantaneously relayed to command." Her attention returned to Roswell. "Your security access has been revoked, Commander. Please surrender your weapon." For a tense moment, Roswell seemed to consider resistance, his knuckles white around his sidearm. Then, with a defeated sigh, he lowered the weapon and handed it to the nearest Marine. "This isn't over," he muttered as they secured his hands behind his back. "Actually, it is," Vega replied coolly. "We've already apprehended your associates at 3 other Alliance outposts." The network is dismantled. As Roswell and his security team were led away, medics entered to attend to the wounded. One immediately moved to Ria, examining her injured arm. "Superficial," the medic pronounced after a brief assessment. "You're lucky. Another centimeter and it would have hit an artery." Ria winced as the wound was cleaned and bandaged. "Doesn't feel superficial," she grumbled. Kate approached her, relieved she wasn't seriously injured. "So, we did it." Against impressive odds, Lieutenant Commander Vega interjected, joining them. "Your transmission triggered an operation that's been building for months. We've suspected corruption at several outposts, but lacked concrete evidence linking it to higher-level officials. The Shard provided that link." Kate asked. "And more," Vega confirmed. "Transaction records, communication logs, meeting recordings, everything needed to dismantle the entire operation." She looked at Ria with newfound respect. "Your father would be proud. Ambassador Thorne was investigating this corruption before his death. We suspected foul play, but couldn't prove it until now." Ria's eyes widened. "You knew my father?" "I worked with him briefly during the Perseus negotiations," Vega explained. "He was a good man, one of the best diplomatic minds in the Alliance, regardless of species." The acknowledgement seemed to affect Ria deeply. Her usual defensive posture softened, and Cade noticed her eyes glistening slightly. "Thank you," she said quietly. Vega nodded, then addressed them both. "You'll need to come with us for debriefing. Alliance Command will want your full statements." "Are we under arrest?" Cade asked cautiously. "Quite the opposite," Vega replied. "You've done the Alliance a tremendous service. However, protocol requires a complete account of events." They were escorted to a transport vessel, where medics performed more thorough examinations. Ria's arm was properly treated, and Cade received attention for various cuts and bruises he hadn't even noticed in the heat of the moment. As the transport lifted off, Cade gazed out the viewport at the receding landscape of Taraxis, the harsh terrain that had been his home for 3 years. "Having second thoughts?" Ria asked, settling into the seat beside him. "About leaving this dust ball?" "Not for a second," he replied with a smile. "Though I am wondering what happens next." "Debriefing, commendations, probably job offers," Ria speculated. "Alliance intelligence tend to recruit people who prove themselves in the field." Cade considered this. "And what about you? Back to your people?" Something in his tone must have betrayed his feelings, because Ria's expression softened. I haven't decided yet. My mission is complete, but, Cade prompted when she hesitated. But I've discovered some unexpected interest during this adventure, she finished, her tail swishing subtly beside her. Before Cade could respond, the transport shuddered slightly as it entered the upper atmosphere. Lieutenant Commander Vega approached, data pad in hand. We'll be docking with the Alliance cruiser Intrepid in approximately 30 minutes, she informed them. You'll be given quarters there while we complete the journey to headquarters. How long will that take? Cade asked. About 3 days at standard speed, Vega replied. The Intrepid was the closest vessel we could divert to Taraxis when your transmission came through. After providing them with additional details about the upcoming procedures, Vega returned to the cockpit, leaving Cade and Ria alone in the passenger compartment. 3 days, Ria mused. Plenty of time to recover. And to talk, Cade added meaningfully. She smiled, her yellow eyes studying him with a warmth that made his heart skip. Yes, I think we have quite a bit to discuss. The transport continued its ascent, carrying them away from the planet where their unlikely partnership had begun, with a tail stuck in a door and a reluctant engineer's decision to help. 3 days later, the Intrepid docked at Alliance headquarters, a massive space station orbiting a neutral world that served as the administrative center for the coalition of species. Cade and Ria had spent the journey recovering from their ordeal, providing detailed accounts to intelligence officers, and exploring the unexpected connection that had formed between them. After a final meeting with senior Alliance officials, they were informed that the corruption network had been completely dismantled, with dozens of arrests across multiple worlds. Roswell and his key associates were facing tribunal hearings for their crimes. The Alliance Council wishes to express its gratitude for your actions, Admiral Keller told them in the debriefing room. Your bravery and quick thinking prevented further damage to interspecies relations and Alliance security. What happens now? Cade asked. That's largely up to you, the Admiral replied. Engineer Thompson, your technical skills have been noted by several departments. And MS. Thorne, your intelligence background and field capabilities are impressive. The Alliance would be fortunate to retain either of you in official capacities. They were offered positions, Cade with Advanced Engineering Division, where his ethical concerns about weapons development would be respected, and Ria with Diplomatic Security, following somewhat in her father's footsteps. Consider your options carefully, Admiral Keller advised. Take some leave, rest, and inform us of your decisions when you're ready. After the debriefing, they stood together on an observation deck, watching ships arrive and depart through the massive viewport. The galaxy stretched out before them, filled with possibilities. So, Ria began, her tail gently swishing behind her. Have you decided? Cade leaned against the railing. I'm considering the engineering position. It would be good to work on something meaningful again. He glanced at her. And you? Diplomatic security sounds important. It is, she agreed. Continuing what my father started appeals to me. She hesitated. But I'm also considering something else. What's that? There's a joint human-beast folk research initiative on Tala Prime, she explained. They're developing new environmental technologies for challenging worlds. They need both engineering expertise and cultural liaisons. Cade straightened, interest piqued. Sounds like they need people exactly like us. Exactly like us, Ria repeated with a smile. And it's far from military bureaucracy and politics. A fresh start. Together, Cade asked, voicing the question that had been lingering between them since their escape. Ria's yellow eyes met his, a warmth in them that he'd come to treasure. I've grown rather fond of you, despite the rough start, or perhaps because of it. Getting your tail stuck in my door was certainly a memorable introduction, Cade teased, gently taking her hand. Next time, don't pull so hard, she replied with a playful growl. Next time, don't break into my quarters, he countered. Their laughter faded into comfortable silence as they gazed at the stars. The path ahead would have its challenges, cultural differences, lingering prejudices, and personal adjustments, but they had already overcome far greater obstacles together. 2 weeks later, They boarded a passenger liner bound for Tala Prime, their belongings packed in a few containers, their alliance commendations tucked away as mementos of the adventure that had brought them together. As they navigated the boarding ramp, Rhea's tail momentarily caught in the narrow doorway of the ship, causing her to stumble. "Not again," she muttered as Cade helped free her. He laughed, remembering how it all began. "Some things never change. And some things do," she replied, taking his hand as they stepped together into their new future. As the ship pulled away from the station, the vastness of space enveloped them, not as a hostile void, but as a canvas of possibilities for two unlikely allies who had discovered that sometimes the greatest adventures begin with the smallest accidents. The automatic security door to their quarters on the passenger liner slid open with a soft hiss. The room was modest but comfortable, a significant upgrade from their accommodations on Taraxis. Through the viewport, stars streaked by as the ship accelerated to light speed, beginning the 3-week journey to Tala Prime. Rhea deposited her bag on the floor and stretched, her lithe form silhouetted against the starfield. "First night of freedom," she said, turning to Cade with a smile. "No alarms, no patrols, no commanders trying to kill us. I could get used to this," Cade replied, setting down his own belongings. He approached the viewport, watching the hypnotic flow of stars. "Strange to think that everything we've known is behind us now. Having regrets?" Rhea asked, moving to stand beside him. He shook his head. "Not regrets. Just adjusting to how quickly life can change. A week ago, I was fixing drones and counting days until my contract ended. Now," he gestured between them and toward the stars beyond. "Now you're traveling to a new world with a beast folk woman you met because her tail got stuck in your door." Rhea finished with a chuckle. "Life does have interesting turns." Cade laughed. "When you put it that way, it sounds ridiculous." "The best stories often do," she replied, her yellow eyes reflecting the starlight. They spent that evening exploring the passenger liner, adjusting to their newfound freedom. The ship housed travelers from various alliance species, humans, beast folk, and others from worlds Cade had only read about. No one gave them a second glance as they walked the promenade deck together, a human and beast folk in casual conversation, a sight more common here than on isolated outposts like Taraxis. Over the following days, they fell into a comfortable routine. Mornings were spent in the ship's library, researching Tala Prime and the environmental project they would be joining. Afternoons often found them in the observation lounge or recreation facilities, learning more about each other without the pressure of survival driving their every interaction. "You never told me how you learned to fight like that," Cade remarked one afternoon as they watched the ship's combat training demonstration. "Those security officers didn't stand a chance against you." Rhea's ears flicked in modest acknowledgement. "My mother was a security specialist before she became a diplomat. She insisted I learn to defend myself, especially after choosing to follow my father into human-dominated spaces." "She taught you well," Cade said, remembering Rhea's fluid movements during their escape. "She would have liked you," Rhea replied quietly. "She always said humans were more impressive than they first appeared." "High praise," Cade laughed. "And your father? What would he have thought?" Rhea considered this, her tail swishing thoughtfully. "He believed in connections between different species, that we had more to offer each other as allies than as separate entities. He would have approved of." She hesitated. "Of us," Cade finished, aware they had yet to define exactly what us meant. "Yes," she said simply, "of us." The journey continued, each day bringing them closer to Tala Prime and deeper into understanding each other. They shared meals, stories, aspirations, and, occasionally, tentative touches that spoke of growing affection. Their relationship evolved naturally, without the artificial pressure of life-threatening situations. During their final week of travel, the ship's captain announced a formal dinner for all passengers. It was a tradition before arrival at major destinations, a celebration of journeys nearly complete and new beginnings on the horizon. Cade found himself unexpectedly nervous as he prepared for the evening, adjusting the collar of the formal attire he'd acquired from the ship's store. He had never been one for social functions, preferring the company of machines to diplomatic niceties. A soft knock at his door interrupted his anxious preparations. He opened it to find Rio waiting, and his breath caught in his throat. She wore a flowing dress of deep emerald that complemented her black fur, accented with subtle silver embroidery that caught the light when she moved. Her usually practical appearance had transformed into something elegant, yet still uniquely her. "You look amazing," he said finally, realizing he had been staring. Her ears flicked slightly, a sign of pleasure he had come to recognize. "You clean up rather well yourself, Engineer Thompson." "Just Cade tonight," he replied, offering his arm. "No chitlis, no positions, no hunks." "Just Cade and Rhea," she agreed, taking his arm. Two travelers heading to a new life. The ship's main hall had been transformed for the occasion. Soft lighting, live music from a multi-species ensemble, and tables arranged to encourage mingling among the diverse passengers. As they entered, Cade noticed a few curious glances directed their way, but none held the judgment or suspicion he had grown accustomed to on military installations. Here, amidst the cosmopolitan population of the Alliance core worlds, their pairing was unremarkable, perhaps even commonplace. They enjoyed a meal of dishes from various worlds, Rhea introducing Cade to Beastfolk cuisine he had never encountered before. The conversation flowed easily, touching on their past experiences, hopes for their work on Tala the Prime, and the wider political situation following the corruption scandal they had helped expose. "Word is spreading through the Alliance," commented a human diplomat seated nearby. "The arrest of Commander Roswell and his associates has prompted internal reviews across multiple sectors. It's quite the shake-up. Long overdue," added his beast folk companion, a dignified male with silver-streaked fur. "Trust can only exist alongside accountability." Cade and Rhea exchanged glances, privately satisfied that their actions were having wider consequences. They had chosen not to advertise their role in the events, preferring to leave the details to official alliance statements. After dinner, the central area was cleared for dancing. The music shifted to accommodate the various cultural traditions represented aboard the ship, human waltzes blending with beast folk rhythmic movements and the geometric patterns favored by other alliance species. "Shall we?" Cade asked, extending his hand toward the dance floor. Rhea's eyes widened slightly. "I've never danced with a human before. Our traditions are quite different. Then we'll create our own style," he suggested. "After all, isn't that what we've been doing since we met?" With a smile, she took his hand, and they joined the other dancers. There were awkward moments as they adjusted to each other's natural movements, her more fluid, his more structured, but they quickly found a rhythm that complemented both. Her tail occasionally brushed against nearby dancers, earning a few startled looks that soon turned to smiles as the couple's earnest enjoyment became apparent. Later, as the evening wound down, they found themselves on the ship's observation deck, watching the stars in comfortable silence. The vast universe stretched before them, no longer a battlefield or escape route, but a canvas of possibilities. "1 week until Tala the Prime," Rhea said softly. "Nervous?" Cade asked. She considered the question. Curious, she decided. About the work, about the planet, about... She turned to face him, her yellow eyes serious in the dim light. "About us. What we might become away from crisis and danger." Cade gently took her hands in his. "I think we've proven we work well together under pressure. I'm looking forward to discovering how we do in peace." "As am I," she replied, stepping closer. Their first kiss was tentative, an exploration of physical differences and shared emotion. Her fur was soft against his skin, her body warm and vibrant with life. When they finally pulled apart, there was wonder in both their expressions, at the bridge they had crossed and the distances yet to travel together. The remainder of the journey passed in a pleasant blur of anticipation and deepening connection. They prepared for their arrival, reviewing the project details, organizing their belongings, and discussing their approach to their new roles. On the final day, they stood together at the viewport as the ship decelerated from light speed, revealing the blue-green sphere of Tala the Prime. Unlike the harsh landscape of Taraxis, This world promised verdant forests, rolling plains, and vast oceans. A place where life flourished and new beginnings seemed not just possible but inevitable. As the ship descended toward the research colony, Cade felt Rhea's hand slip into his. Her tail brushed lightly against his leg, no longer trapped or caught, but moving freely alongside him. The gesture carried a symbolism neither needed to articulate. "Ready?" he asked as the landing sequence began. "Always," she replied with a confidence that had grown throughout their journey together. The ship touched down with barely a tremor, its advanced systems compensating for the transition from space to planetary gravity. Passengers began gathering their belongings, preparing to disembark into their various futures. Cade and Rhea joined the orderly procession toward the exit ramp. As they approached the narrower doorway leading to the disembarkation area, Rhea paused, a mischievous glint in her eye. "Careful with your tail," Cade teased, remembering their first meeting. "Oh, I don't know," she replied with a playful smile. "Getting it stuck worked out rather well for me last time." With a shared laugh that carried the weight of their journey and the lightness of their future, they stepped together through the doorway and onto the soil of their new world. Different species united by common purpose and uncommon affection, ready to write the next chapter of their unlikely story. The Talida Prime Research Colony sprawled across a lush valley, its buildings seamlessly integrated with the natural landscape. Unlike the stark military architecture of Taraxis, the structures here curved organically, many partially covered by native vegetation. The central research facility rose from the center, a glass and metal spire where teams from various Alliance worlds collaborated on environmental projects. Dr. Helena Voss, the project director, greeted them personally when they arrived at the administration building. A tall human woman with silver-streaked dark hair, she had the weathered look of someone who spent more time in the field than behind a desk. "Engineer Thompson, Liaison Thorne," she said, shaking their hands firmly. "Your arrival is perfectly timed. We're moving into the critical phase of the adaptive ecosystem design." "We're eager to contribute," Rhea replied, "though we might need a few days to orient ourselves." "Of course," Dr. Voss agreed. "I've assigned you adjacent quarters in the Eastern Residential Complex. It has a nice view of the valley and the experimental fields. Your duties will begin formally next week, but feel free to observe operations before then." They were provided with colony identification chips, transportation passes, and a basic orientation package. A young assistant escorted them to their new home, a pair of connected living units with large windows overlooking the verdant landscape. "These are lovely," Rhea commented as the assistant left them to settle in. She ran her hand along the natural stone countertop in the common area. "Quite different from military quarters." "No kidding," Kate agreed, testing the comfortable seating with appreciation. "I might actually enjoy spending time here instead of hiding in the workshop." They spent the remainder of the day unpacking and exploring their immediate surroundings. The research colony housed approximately 2,000 residents, scientists, engineers, support staff, and their families. The population was remarkably diverse, with multiple Alliance species working side by side in what appeared to be genuine cooperation rather than the awkward segregation they had experienced on Taraxis. That evening, they dined at one of the colony's communal gardens, an open-air space where residents gathered to share meals and conversation. Several colleagues introduced themselves, curious about the newcomers but respectful of their privacy. "Word travels fast," Kate observed as they walked back to their quarters under Talida Prime's twin moons. "Everyone seems to know who we are." "Small community," Rhea replied, "and I suspect our backgrounds raise some interest. Not every day they get a beast folk diplomatic liaison and a human engineer who helped expose a major corruption scandal." Kate glanced at her sharply. "How do they know about that?" "We didn't mention it." Rhea shrugged. "Dr. Voss has high-level Alliance connections. She probably received a complete briefing before approving our transfer." The next morning, they reported to the central facility for their official tour. The scale of the operation impressed even Cade, who had worked on major Alliance engineering projects before. The research teams were developing adaptive environmental technologies capable of accelerating ecosystem restoration on damaged worlds, like Taraxis, whose natural systems have been compromised by earlier industrial exploitation. The work you'll be doing has implications for dozens of worlds, explained Dr. Voss as she guided them through the main laboratory. Engineer Thompson, your experience with atmospheric systems will be invaluable to our air quality stabilization team. And Liaison Thorne, your understanding of beast folk environmental adaptations offers unique insights for our biome development models. Their professional lives quickly fell into a productive rhythm. Cade found himself challenged and engaged by the technical problems the project presented. Complex engineering puzzles without the moral compromises that had driven him from his previous positions. Rhea flourished in her role bridging cultural perspectives, helping teams understand how different species perceived and interacted with environments. In the evenings and during rest days, they explored the colony and surrounding wilderness together. Tala the Prime's ecosystem was vibrant and diverse, providing endless opportunities for discovery. They hiked through forests where bioluminescent fungi lit natural pathways, swam in crystal-clear lakes with curious amphibious creatures, and watched spectacular sunsets from hillsides carpeted with color-shifting flowers. Their relationship developed naturally alongside their professional lives. Though they maintained separate quarters, they spent most of their free time together, learning to navigate the subtle cultural differences that occasionally surfaced. Rhea introduced Cade to beast folk customs and perspectives, while he shared human traditions and viewpoints. Their differences became sources of strength rather than division. 6 months into their new life, the colony celebrated the successful completion of the first phase of the Adaptive Ecosystem Project. A formal ceremony recognized the contributions of key team members, including Cade's innovative atmospheric stabilizer design and Rhea's cross-species environmental perception study. At the reception following the ceremony, Dr. Voss approached them with a special assignment. The Alliance Reclamation Committee has requested a feasibility study for Taraxis, she explained, watching their reactions carefully. Given your unique experience with that world, you'd be ideal candidates to lead the assessment team. Cade and Rhea exchanged surprised glances. Return to Taraxis? Cade asked, memories of their escape still vivid. Temporarily, Dr. Voss clarified. A 2-week survey to evaluate whether our technologies could restore portions of the planet's damaged ecosystem. The military presence has been significantly reduced following the corruption scandal, and the new administration is prioritizing environmental recovery. Rhea's ears flicked thoughtfully. It would be interesting to see the planet under different circumstances, and to approach it with restoration in mind rather than escape, Cade added, warming to the idea. Dr. Voss smiled. I thought you might find the symmetry appealing. Consider it an opportunity to transform a place of difficult memories into something positive. They accepted the assignment, and 2 weeks later boarded a research vessel bound for Taraxis. The journey was considerably more comfortable than their frantic escape had been, with a fully equipped science team and proper supplies accompanying them. As they approached the planet, Cade stood with Rhea at the observation viewport, watching the stormy world grow larger. Strange to be coming back voluntarily, he commented. Life has a way of creating unexpected circles, Rhea replied philosophically. Her tail brushed against his leg, a gesture that had become her natural way of expressing affection. The planet looks different already. Indeed, even from orbit, they could see changes. The military base had been partially repurposed as a scientific outpost, with new structures expanding from the original compound. Preliminary environmental interventions had already begun in select areas, patches of greenery visible where only bare rock had been before. Their survey team spent the following days evaluating soil conditions, atmospheric composition, and native microbial life, all essential data for designing a comprehensive restoration plan. They occasionally encountered former colleagues who had remained after the military downsizing, leading to reunions that ranged from awkward to genuinely warm. On their final evening on Taraxis, Cade suggested a walk to a specific location, the ridge overlooking the lava. tubes where they had hidden during their escape. The area had been deemed safe enough for brief visits, though the constant tectonic activity made extended stays inadvisable. Feeling nostalgic? Rhea asked as they reached the overlook. Something like that, Cade replied. The setting sun cast long shadows across the landscape, softening the harsh terrain. This is where I realized something important. What was that? She asked, her yellow eyes curious in the fading light. That I'd follow you anywhere, he said simply, even through unstable lava tubes on a hostile planet. Rhea laughed softly. Not my best navigation decision. Actually, it was perfect, Cade countered. He reached into his pocket and withdrew a small object. A crystalline formation similar in appearance to the data shard they had risked everything to retrieve, but smaller and set in a simple band. I had this made from a mineral sample collected here. It's formed under extreme pressure in the planet's depths, like our relationship was. Rhea's ears perked forward as she realized what he was offering. Cade, I know it's sudden, he continued, suddenly nervous. But life is unpredictable. One moment your door jams, the next you're helping a stranger with her tail stuck in it, and then somehow you're standing on another planet realizing you never want to be apart from her. Rhea's eyes glistened in the fading light. Are you proposing a formal bonding? A mixed species union? I'm proposing whatever you want to call it, Cade replied earnestly. Human, beast folk, alliance official, colony ceremony. The label doesn't matter to me. I just know that my life is better with you in it, and I want that to continue. Rhea took the crystalline ring, examining how it caught the light of Taraxis's setting sun. In beast folk tradition, life bonds are formed during the winter solstice, beneath the light of the ancestors. She looked up at him, a smile spreading across her face. But I think our story has always made its own rules. She slipped the ring onto her finger, where it nestled perfectly against her dark fur. Yes, Cade Thompson, I accept your proposal, whatever we decide to call it. Their kiss was framed by the dramatic landscape where their journey together had truly begun, a hostile world that had, against all odds, brought them together. When they finally separated, both were laughing softly at the improbability of their path. Of all the doors in all the military bases in all the galaxy, you had to get your tail stuck in mine, Cade teased. Lucky tail, Rhea replied with a flick of the appendage in question. They returned to their research vessel as night fell, the planet's electrical storms beginning their nightly light show across the horizon. The team's report would recommend a phased restoration approach for Taraxis, a challenging but feasible project that could transform the harsh world into something more hospitable over the coming decades. The journey back to Tala the Prime gave them time to consider the implications of their decision. Cross-species unions, while legally recognized throughout the Alliance, still face social hurdles in many regions. Yet the research colony, with its diverse population and progressive outlook, provided an ideal environment for their relationship to flourish. Upon their return, they shared their news with close colleagues. Dr. Voss was among the first to offer congratulations. I suspected this might happen when I reviewed your files, she admitted with a knowing smile. Something about two people from different worlds risking everything to expose corruption together. It tends to create lasting bonds. Their bonding ceremony took place 6 months later, under Tala the Prime's spring canopy, when the native flowering trees released their luminescent pollen into the evening air. It was a small gathering that blended human and beast folk traditions. Rhea wore the ceremonial colors of her family lineage, while Cade incorporated elements from his Earth heritage. Dr. Voss officiated the ceremony, speaking eloquently about bridges between cultures and the strength found in diversity. Colleagues from the research team attended, along with a few friends they had made in the colony and several of Rhea's extended family members who had traveled from their homeworld. As they exchanged their vows, a message arrived from Alliance headquarters. Formal commendations for their continued contributions to the Taraxis Restoration Project, which had been officially approved with full funding. The timing seemed fitting, a new beginning for the planet that had brought them together. Their life together continued to evolve alongside their professional accomplishments. Cade eventually became lead engineer for the colony's expansion projects, developing sustainable infrastructure that worked in harmony with Tala the Prime's natural systems. Rhea's expertise in cross-species environmental adaptation led to her appointment as a senior advisor to the Alliance Planetary Development Commission, allowing her to influence policy across multiple worlds. 2 years after their bonding, they welcomed a new challenge when they became foster parents to a young beast folk child whose parents had been killed in a transport accident. The girl, named Lyra, had her own adjustment period to the unusual family arrangement, but quickly came to adore both her guardians, especially enjoying rides on Cade's shoulders and learning engineering basics in his workshop. One evening, as they watched Lyra playing in their garden, Rhea leaned against Cade's shoulder with a contented sigh. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if my tail hadn't gotten stuck that night. I'd like to think we would have found each other anyway, Cade replied, wrapping an arm around her. Some connections are just meant to be. Perhaps, Rhea agreed, though I'm glad we didn't have to test that theory. Me too, Cade said, watching as Lyra attempted to climb one of the garden sculptures, showing the same fearless determination that reminded him so much of Rhea. As twilight settled over the colony, the three of them walked home together through streets lined with trees transplanted from various Alliance worlds, a living symbol of different species thriving together. Behind them, Tala the Prime's moons rose in tandem, casting twin shadows that merged into one along the path ahead. A perfect metaphor, Cade thought, for their unlikely journey from suspicious strangers to family, all because of a jammed door and a tale that refused to cooperate until it led them exactly where they needed to be.